Hi, everyone. John Opperman, Executive Director of Earth Day Initiative, back again on the Earth Day virtual stage. And I'm here with Jerome Foster, who I'm super excited to talk to about climate activism. Jerome, do you want to introduce yourself super quick?
Absolutely. My name is Jerome Foster II. I'm 20 years old, and I'm the youngest ever White House Environmental Justice Advisor. And I've just been reelected a few days ago. And it's exciting. I'm also a co-executive director of Wake Up, which is a communication to impact organization working to mobilize the movement of young people to turn out to vote, also working on ways in which they can activate through news and through art and other ways in which they can feel empowered to take climate action.
Amazing. So tell us first, how did you get into this stuff? Like, what inspired you to really dedicate so much time and energy to climate activism?
Yeah, so for me, there was no real like kind of just flipping point where I just like wanted to get out in the streets and kind of mobilize. It was kind of gradual where as a young person, I always was aware of the climate of like our environment and it was had a relationship with it by just like going out in nature. And slowly over time, I kind of through being exposed to it through school or being exposed to it through the media, I kind of understood that the climate crisis was happening and that as a young person, that would directly impact my future. And being a young kid growing up thinking adults will do this. They have the ability, they have the knowledge to do this. But as I grew older, that naivety faded and that trust faded. And it understood that my generation has to rise up and do that. And our generation has to be the leaders of change because the adults aren't doing enough. And that kind of led me down the path of utilizing what passion I had, which was for technology and virtuality development, to kind of create stories of empathy, really to show the scale, scope, and speed of the climate crisis, but also talk about the environmental justice aspect and the aspect of equity that is often not talked about a few years ago in the climate crisis. And I think one thing that really kind of made me feel motivated to go out in the streets was seeing the rest of my generation doing the same thing. When I started climate striking in front of the White House, it was because of the fact that I saw that the rest of my generation was feeling the same exact emotion I was feeling of anxiety, of anger, of that sense of disappointment in the systems of economics and government. And that movement turned into now in 2023, one in every three young person has either participated in the climate strike or has known about a climate strike. And that's incredibly powerful. And I think that is what motivates even more young people to keep getting involved now.
Yeah, that's incredible. So tell me about some of the stuff that you're doing with the White House in the advisory role.
Yeah, so in March of 2021, I was elected to the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, which is within the Office of the President's Council on Environmental Quality. So we work on initiatives like the Justice 40 initiative, where 40% of federal investments go to frontline communities and environmental justice communities. So we make sure that communities that are across the United States that are facing the brunt of the climate crisis see those funds to make sure that they're climate resilient in a timely manner and also in a just manner. One issue that we saw in a lot of past administrations is that if it was earmarked funds for Black and Brown communities, oftentimes there would be systems of oppression, systems of racism that would swindle that money away to more wealthier white communities that continually perpetuated and exacerbated existing social inequalities. And that work is a portion of the work that I do at the White House, but another portion is representing young people. So within every like environmental justice bill that's being pushed through and being implemented through different federal agencies, I'm the sole representative of Gen Z to make sure that we're represented in within the frameworks of funding that's given out, the frameworks of education, of training opportunities, and of making sure that our future is just in a way, because oftentimes young people aren't consulted at all when it comes to policies that pertain to our future, and that has to change. So right now within the re-election process, I've been advocating for even more young people to be a part of this council, and over the next coming weeks I'll see if that is a that comes to fruition and seeing my generation really reflected in this administration.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So what kind of, obviously a lot of the what you're talking about here with environmental justice issues and just the built-in systems of racism that have really put overdue burden on communities of color or underrepresented communities. What's the like most succinct way that you could describe that to people that maybe aren't super familiar with these kinds of issues, they maybe haven't read a lot about it, they haven't heard a lot about it. Like, what's the one takeaway message that you would hope to break down to people if people are watching this and they're not super well versed in this stuff yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on a basic level, if we talk about what climate change is, there's three different aspects. There's the past and the present, and the future. When we talk about the present, it's talking about what we need to do right now to make sure that our future isn't going to continue where we have rising global emissions, more destabilized climate, and a worse environment for people that are living right now. But the aspect of environmental justice that we're talking about is reconciling with the past to proposing bills in the future that reconcile with our past. And one way in which you do that is by looking at the root cause of the climate crisis. And the root cause of the climate crisis isn't just the idea of burning fossil fuels into the air, but of the economic system that we can limitlessly take from the environment without giving anything back. And that comes from the institutions of slavery, in which that was instituted not for our environment, but for communities of people, in which entire communities were destroyed for the sake of economic growth. And now that's happening to our environment, where vast swaths of lands are being destroyed and withered away for the sake of economic growth in the same sense. And I think that system is what we're fighting for as activists and as youth organizers, is for us to figure out a way in which we can move away from that system into a system that is of reciprocity and that gives back to the environment, not only takes from it. And the last aspect of what we're fighting for in climate change, climate justice, is the future. And how do we make sure that the rising global emissions don't continue to exacerbate frontline communities that are facing the climate crisis right now? And the biggest thing that needs to be done is for us to lower those CO2 emissions through stopping all new oil and gas projects that are being proposed all across the country and across the world, and also by going back into the communities that we have destroyed, in a sense, and figuring out how we can reconcile with that by planting trees, by creating community programs, et cetera, and kind of building from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Thank you. And then the last question that I want to ask you is for folks that are looking for things that they can do. I think I mentioned this before, that people are really clamoring for, what can I do? Just give me something that I can do to move things in the right direction. And often it can be really overwhelming if you give someone a list of like, here's 100 things that you could do to make a positive impact. And it's like, yeah, it's unlikely that you're going to do 100 things, but you're probably not even going to do one if you give someone a list of 100 things. So if you just boil it down to like one place that people could start, where could people start to move things in a positive direction around everything that you're talking about, past, present, and future of climate action and all of these systems of oppression that we're trying to resolve, packaged up with tackling the climate crisis?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that a person can do now is kind of relates back to when I was 13 years old in middle school. I was just a kid who didn't know what to do. I felt a sense of anxiety about how can I be a part of this movement that's fighting for climate justice. And the biggest thing that I did was I emailed an organization online and I said, hey, how can I help? I can build websites, I can code. Where do you need that help? And the biggest thing I would say to other people is that every job is a climate job. Every job is a job that can help us fight the climate crisis. If you're a student, if you're a person working within a business, or someone who is just working in communities, you have an intersection with the environment and can better it with the work that you do. And if you're passionate about art, use art to raise awareness of the nuances and things that are often not talked about with the climate crisis. Or if you're a coder like me, figure out ways in which you can build VR projects or help with website development. Or if you're an organizer, then figure out ways in which you can help raise awareness and get more people out in the streets. There's so many ways in which you can help that can really progress this movement. And the easiest way to do that is by emailing organizations like Sunrise Movement, or email organizations like Zero Hour, emailing like any of these organizations out here, like, or the Climate Initiative that's hosting us now, is figuring out how to get involved and really bolster the work that we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. I love that, especially because that's really following up on another theme that we had from Project Drawdown and Christy Drutman, talking about how every job is a climate job. Like, there are ways that you can build in the environment and climate action into all jobs, and we really need all hands on deck. And then the other thing is, as executive director of a nonprofit, the thing that I'm often trying to convey to people is we need skilled people. We need skills contributed to whatever we're doing. So I know everyone wants to plant a tree and you want to get your hands dirty, and that's great. But really what we can use is exactly what you're talking about, where it's like graphic design and legal advice and finance and accounting and all of the things that maybe people have skills in, contribute that toward a good cause in the form of working with some nonprofit. I love that. And, you know, everyone comes with their own abilities and skills that then they can contribute to move things in the right direction. So yeah, thanks for that.
Definitely.
Thank you again for joining. I know this was a super quick segment, but I'm glad that we were able to have you join. And where can people check you out?
Sure. You can check me out on Instagram or Twitter, just my name, Jerome Foster II. And you can check out the work that I do, or my organization Wake Up, which is WAICUP.org. And you can check out the work that we're doing there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.